Hmm. Oh, look at that. Straight into it, 9 p.m. Nobody's watching. Lucky I've got my mic switched off so they can't hear me moaning. Oh. Anyway, I'm just going to crack on with it. Oh no, there's 4 people. 4 people. I'm famous. Thank you, 4 people. Would you teach me how to make beats? Big Will. Hopefully will. Hello, Mark. Hee hee. Infamous. Be good if I was infamous. Shoot electricity out of my hands. That'd be brilliant. Oh, thank you, Charles. What a brilliant name, Charles Humbles. That's an amazing name. Thank you, Charles. $10 watching. I'm going to wait until it gets to 50, so we could be here for some time. Hello, Cologne. Rocks. Hello, DJ Albums. Another great name there. Can you go over saving to external drives? Yeah, that's all simple stuff. Thank you, DJ Albums. You are awesome with a DJ name like DJ Albums. What a brilliant name. I hope you've got lots of albums. You've got to live up to your name. You know, you on X now, no live. Yeah. Here she is. 15. Indeed. Yes, I'm going to wait till 50. Hopefully that won't be too long, and then I'm going to get started. So if you don't mind waiting, having a bit of a chat, listening to me ramble on like a nutter. Thank you, Lars. Well, you must have a lot of records, Mr. DJ Albums. Probably more than me. You've been collecting the same time as me. Thank you, Kane Drive 76. Thank you, DJ Albums again. Honestly, mean it, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for all your support and checking my videos out over the last few months. It's been quite a mad little journey, to be honest. And I've decided to do these live feeds, a bit of a test for myself, because I should be playing out live really to get my music out there, but I don't know, I'm a bit of an introvert even though I'm on here. You wouldn't believe it, but I'm the most shy, introverted, confident person you'll ever meet. I'm all a bit mixed up like that, but there you go. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm not. I'm cool. I know my stuff. I just hope that I can show you guys some tricks and tips, probably some stuff that you've already seen on my channel, on my videos, but hopefully you'll see me put it into practice kind of, you know, like in real time, and hopefully I'll get something going. I'm going to make some drum and bass. I know not all of you are probably into drum and bass and jungle, but I think a lot of you are. You're still going to learn something even if the music isn't your cup of tea. So there you go. Oh, thanks, Mark. Yeah, that'd be brilliant. I did actually leave a couple of posts on a couple of the groups today, but yeah, that'd be great, Mark. Thank you very much. Hello, Squarewave. Are you like Soundwave's even geekier cousin from Transformers? No disrespect. It's a crap joke. It's a crap geeky Transformer joke. Thank you, Mark. Well, we got 19. Well, look, I'm really grateful for everyone that is watching, but 19, I thought I'd get a bit better than that. Anyway, I'm not going to keep you guys waiting because you're more important, because you're the ones that are here. So how long do you want to wait? Give me an idea. Does the mic sound fine? Am I distorting? How's my voice sound? It's not distorted, is it? Sounds good to me. Thank you, Square Wave. 19. Right, let's wait till 20. Oh, 21. Wallop. All right, Inky. Hold your horses. Mic's fine, but you're distorting. Oh, okay, I get you. I get you. Right, well, they've had their chance, so I'm going to crack on. So I found 2 samples. I'm going to be completely upfront with you. There was a tiny amount of pre-preparation for the 2 main samples that I'm going to use for this, but I am going to load them all in from scratch and try and replicate something that I got together earlier today as a bit of a practice. So I'm going to get a breakbeat from an Afro Funk album, and I'm going to take a sample from a Quincy Jones album. They're all on my hard drive that's connected to my MPC X. So I'm going to go to my browser, places. I am going to go at my own pace here, guys. Obviously the video is going to be archived, so you can go back and watch it. And again, if there's guys out there that don't know, I do Skype lessons one-on-one, or Google Hangouts if you prefer. Please message me through Facebook. It's just facebook.com/tubedigger. Go to my page, and we can sort out times, dates, money, all that stuff. But if you didn't already know, yeah, I do one-on-one Skype tutorials, and I'm trying to put a course together at the moment, which some of the things that I'm going to do in this video I'm going to cover, but I'm going to go into more detail in this course that I'm putting together. It will be a paid course because I've got to, I've got to earn some dollars, chaps. So, but it's going to be really good. It's going to give away some pretty decent secrets, and just to keep it a bit separate from YouTube, because obviously there's tons of free content on here, and I'm not going to stop giving you guys obviously stuff like this. But yeah, that's a course I'm putting together. So there'll be some of that content in this video. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to go to my iOmega 500GB drive. MP3s, Afro Funk. First sample I'm going to load in is Oneness of Juju. Where is it gone? It's called Poo 2. What a nice name. So I'm not going to load that to a pad, just going to load it straight in. And the other sample was from Quincy Jones. Now, as you can see, I don't know if you can't really see the text, but that's how many Quincy Jones albums I've got. Not because, I'm his biggest fan on earth. It's just, you collect MP3s and you end up with about 72,000 Quincy Jones albums. So I've got to remember which album. I think it sounds. Let's have a look. No. I heard that, maybe. Let me just check my notes. Everyone's still there? 24 people. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Thank you, Metro Mental. You're welcome, mate. Love Me by Name. Not you guys. Well, you can love me by name if you want. Love Me by Name. Just going to find out. Quincy Sounds and stuff. I was right. It's on Sounds and stuff like that. Love Me by Name. There you go. Okie dokie. Sample editor. Right, let's get this breakbeat sorted. This is going to take the most amount of time. Excuse me, that's my dinner repeating on me. I just had it about half an hour ago. So obviously this is real time, right? So there's going to be big breaks. If I don't talk and there's big pauses, silence, I'll try and keep it going. I'll try and keep the sounds going. But like most of you guys know, when you're making music, just imagine if there was someone there watching you. It's a bit like, oh God, that must be driving them mad, repeating the same sound over and over. But that's the nature of what I do and what we do. So there you go. Now, so what I'm going to do is reconstruct some of these beats in this break at the start of this track by Oneness of Juju. And I kind of got this phrase knocking around in my head like genre morphing. So it's kind of what people have been doing. I've just put a fancy name on it. So you're taking something that's obviously Afro funk or jazz funk from the 70s, and you're just morphing the sounds from that into a new genre. So I'm going to jungleize this breakbeat, so to speak. I like to do it the old school way. I don't necessarily like chopping things up all the time in the actual chop facility. In the X, it's great for some things, but quite often to get the kind of more natural feel to a breakbeat, it's quite good to chop them actually inside the program itself. So I just wanted to open it up in the sample editor to show you there that there's the sample. So they're the two samples we've got. Oneness of Juju, Pooh 2, and Quincy Jones, Love Me By Name. So let's go to our main page. I'm just on my first track. It's all unused. Let's change the BPM to 176. Thank you, intelligent investor. I thought we were going to have another lesson, mate. It doesn't matter. Obviously, you're doing really well from my first lesson. So there you have it, guys. One lesson with me, and you'll be running off into the hills with all kinds of MPC knowledge. Right. 176. Program edit. Sorry if I'm waffling. It's nerves. It's not nerves. I'm not that nervous. Okay, so this is how I deal with breakbeats quite often. So I pretty much isolate the hits onto each pad. I don't go to the chopper all the time. And 1 second. Hello, I'm back. Right, what was I saying? Yeah, so quite often I don't use the chop facility because I do use it a lot, but not at this stage. When I'm initially chopping up a break, most of the time I like to get the hits into the actual program itself and just adjust the start points. If you go to menu and your gear symbol to your preferences, and in project defaults, I think, yeah, you can set the default pad slice mode to pad. I think in the previous revisions it defaulted to all, and quite often that led to you adjusting the start of one of your pads, and if it had the same sample on another pad, it would adjust the start of that, and you'd messed up the edit. You know, you might have moved it to a snare on pad 2, so on and so forth. But anyway, they've sorted that out now. We can choose whether it's pad or slice, so it defaults to pad. So I'm left-handed, don't know if that makes any difference, but I like my kick on this first pad here, so that'll do. Now what I'm going to do is choose multiple pads, and I'm going to choose the first 12 pads. If I just move up the sample slot there and move it back, that will now put that Oneness of Juju breakbeat on all of those multiple pads that I've just selected. Take it off, put it back onto current, So we're just editing the current pad. Next thing that I'm going to do is, now there's two ways you could do this. I quite often set my polyphony to mono for breakbeat programs, as the dedicated chopper in the sample editor would do. It automatically, when a chop program, if you don't already know it, puts it into mono. But sometimes I quite like to have some of these hits so I can freestyle them over the top. Hello, Kenny. You spelt my name wrong, Kenny. Yeah, it's T-U-B-E-D-I-G-G-A. Come on, man. Get my name right, blood. Come on, Kenny S. It's all right. You're forgiven. It's not a big deal. What was I saying? Distracted. Right. I got distracted there. Anyway. Now, on pad 2, I'm going to put a snare. So just move that up to there. That's moved away. Somebody remind me what I was talking about before I got distracted, if you don't mind. Okay. Now, what we got? 31. 31A worldwide. So I'm going to put a hat on pad 3. So the good thing about this old school technique of reconstructing breaks is that I quite like to keep the break at its original pitch, but because I make jungle and drum and bass, I work at 176 BPM most of the time. But the good thing about that is because obviously the drum hits are going to be longer, because this track is probably, I've no idea, around 90, 100 beats per minute, the original. Oh, actually, it's calculated it as 91 down there, but I don't think that's accurate. But anyway, because the break is obviously being played back faster, you don't really have to worry about things trailing off, and you get a bit more sort of mileage out of these small little hits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate all these, and then I'm going to flatten them all, and then I'm going to sort of start chopping them up, or, you know, exporting to samples and whatnot. So this is going to take a while, guys, doing it all manually like this. You're probably thinking you could just do this in the chopper, but I don't want to. I'm too stubborn. On pad 4, I'm going to have a ghost kick. So if you notice in this break, let's just play it back. It's those little ghost kicks in there. We're going to actually recreate some ghost snares as well, because this break just has kind of a ghost kick on the kind of 16th beat. Sorry if my drum terminology is a bit off. I like to call them paradiddles when it comes to snares. You get those kind of rolls in drum and bass. If that's the wrong term, I'm stopping and watching this YouTube now. I'm stopping. That's all right, Kenny, don't worry. But anyway, what? All right, I can't read that. I can't read it. What are you doing? Anyway, what we got? 28. Oh, I'm losing people already. Right, there's a ghost kick. So then, towards the end of that first bar in this break, we've got sort of like a double kind of ghost kick thing going on. And I'm going to recreate that, and then you'll see what happens when we play it back a bit faster. So what I'm going to do is copy this pad to pad 5. And then just move this up so I get that extra little hit there. Another ghost kick. snare. Actually, that needs to be a short snare. Okay, ghost kick. Copy that pad to here. Another ghost kick. Now, there's a nice ride cymbal in here that I'd like to use. Let's copy that pad to this pad. I hope you guys can see all right. I know it's a bit blurry on the screen. I'm trying to talk you through it. Right. Now let's choose this symbol that we've got here. Okie doke. Now we need another snare, I think. Let's copy that to here. Nice long tail snare there. Only a few more of these to go, guys, sorry. Okay, so now you can see, let me copy that to pad. So I don't know if you can see, guys, it's a bit obscured on the screen, but these 4 pads are going to be like the little rolls that you get. So the first is going to be after that snare. It's going to be this cymbal. And then we've got the kick. And another cymbal. And then that's it, we're done. Right, so that's the break chop. Sorry that took a while. Right, let's put this pattern in. So we've got our chops. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten all these pads because we don't need anything else out of this sample. I'm just going to isolate this kick drum. Hopefully I've done this for all the other hits. I think I did. Just going to get it nice and tight. I like to be precise, chaps. That's why it's taken a long time. I did do it to the snare. I've got any jokes today. I have got one joke, but I can't really tell it. Okay, that's it. We've got all our hits. So I'm going to flatten that. Audio tail, we don't need an audio tail. Bring that down to 0 seconds. Do it. I'm not going to rename any of these. It is good housekeeping if we to click on there and just put, you know, juju snare or one this snare. But I'm not going to do that. It's going to take ages. Do it. Just going to flatten all of these. This is definitely good housekeeping for anyone that moans they haven't got enough RAM in the MPCX, because we've got plenty to play with. It's just about being efficient and, you know, getting rid of stuff you don't need. There you go. Right, so we're on our main page. Right, I'm going to put in a simple pattern and then we're going to start doing a bit more sequencing with that pattern, and I'll start showing you the sequencing tricks that I do and some effects tricks that I've got up my sleeve to show you tonight. So let's put a pattern in first. Let's just put 2 bars in. Okay, I don't like that. I want it to go like that. Messed it up again. Let's put it on to 8th notes. I'm also going to put it on full level. That's tripping me up a little bit. What break? Future sound of prefab sprout? I've no idea. What's up, Mr. Pirate Brain? I've no Explain what YouTube. Oh, I don't know about that. Samples. I've had a few flags. I got a few flags ages ago because I had some music like, what did I have? Cardi B did a remix of that. I had a few flags, copyright flags for some of those hip-hop remixes I did, but I got away with it because I'd monetized the videos, ironically, and I think the small tiny bit of revenue that you get, it just gets redirected to the copyright holder. So they have told me about 10 times that I'm not in any trouble, I don't have to do anything, we're just letting you know. So there you go. Why don't I slow the tempo down? Because I'm usually pretty good, but for some reason I can't get it tonight. Right, that's what I want to do, something like that. There you go. Okay, so here's my break. Now those paradiddle things are up here. So I want them to fall somewhere in between, you know, the sort of start of the second break and maybe the end of the first break and the start of the second break. Okay. So because I've got those hits up here, I'll show you this. This is kind of obvious stuff to some people, but I'll show you a bit more complex way of transposing. So I quite like to use transpose here. I know it's just that one hit, but I can just move that up now to pad 9. And let's go back into 16ths. And we can put these, what I call paradiddle hits in there. Just grab that, transpose that. Change that back to the snare. So what I'm doing here is pretty much how I sort of, you know, make my breaks evolve. I'm just trying to get the first initial pattern how I want it to be, but as I go along and, you know, construct the track to make things a bit more interesting, so these 2 bars aren't just repeating for, you know, 256 bars for a whole song. I'll just grab these hits at random places or places where it makes logical sense to have a little bit of a fill, and I'll just literally grab them and transpose them to get some interesting variations. So I'm going to take out that cymbal. I want to put that in later because that's a bit overkill at the moment. Cool, so I'm happy with that. Now let's go back to the program editor. In fact, let's go to the channel mixer. No, let's go to the program editor. Now, I've shown this in my other videos. I quite like to select all my hits. So go to edit zone, select all. So now I'm editing all my pads, and I like to use the amp envelope. I put it into attack, hold, decay, sustain mode. And I like to bring the sustain all the way to the bottom initially, and then gradually drag it out until I start hearing these drum sounds again. So at the moment they're going to sound, you know, completely snappy and non-existent. And this way it just gives you a little bit more punch and, you know, a bit more transient kind of friendly feel to it, particularly if it's a kind of a sample that's playing back at a faster speed. So I need to increase the sustain now because it's just far too staccato. So the drums are popping a little bit more now. Now the next tip, particularly with lo-fi breaks or breaks that are playing back at a slower pitch than the tempo that you're, or a lower pitch than the tempo that you're working out, if you get my drift, or if you've actually, you know, brought your semitones down for the entire program and you're using a break to make it sound a bit more lo-fi. If you want to add a little bit of high-end sparkle to it, trust me, your low pass filter number 6, your low 6 and your low 8, even sometimes your low 4, depending on the high frequency content, is going to be your best friend. This really makes all the difference. So let's just listen to it dry with the low 1. If we put it on low 2, don't really notice it. A little bit more brightness on low 4. And then it really starts to come out on low 6. And then low 8. Sometimes it can be a bit much, but it doesn't sound too bad. So I'm going to keep it at low 6 for now. In fact, I'm going to take it down to low 4 just for the moment. Take it off of current, of all, put it back onto current. Now I'm going to go to the channel mixer. Now, I've said this before, one of my favourite effects in the MPC is the grimy distortion. You can just get so much mileage out of it. It can really sort of make drums sound very odd in a good way. But you have to be disciplined with it. So let's grab grimy distortion, and we're putting this on the entire program. Now I'm not playing back because, as you might already know, as soon as you put a grimy distortion or any of the distortion in here, it's like full wet, maximum wet percentage. So I'm going to bring that right down. Now I'm going to adjust it on the fly from here. So again, I've said this before, the width and the center controls really do affect the sound a lot with this particular effect. And also, sorry to stop and start again, but because I've shortened the samples to give them that extra bit of punch with the amp envelope, this is what kind of brings them back and foregrounds them a bit more, because at the moment they're a little bit flat and short and they haven't really got much kind of, you know, vibe going on, but this really does warm things up. So once I've applied the grimy distortion and I've got an effect that I want, that's not going to be set in stone. It's just something that I'll keep in my memory going around in my head whilst I'm continuing working, thinking I must bounce a copy of that out before I manipulate things too far away from it. So at least I've got a nice tight, you know, gridlocked 176 2-bar loop of that with that effect on it. And then I can move on and start adjusting more parameters on the grimy distortion and create, essentially what I'm going to do in the next 20 minutes or so is create more variations of this breakbeat, so we can chop between the sequences and, you know, chop things like, yeah, chop things up basically. Yeah. Right, so because I've put that grimy distortion, we've now lost a bit of top end, but it has got that nice distorted kind of bass sound underneath that the actual kick drums are now sort of creating along with that grimy distortion. So I'm going to adjust the low pass filter again, maybe take that up to low 6. Make sure we're on all pads again. So bringing it up to low 8s gives it that extra little bit of brightness. It's really subtle, you might not be able to hear it, but that's good for me. So I quite like the sort of bass sound that those kick drums are sort of, you know, being produced by the grimy distortion. So I'm going to keep this copy of it and I'm going to actually use that as a main thing in this. I quite like the sort of bass vibe that's being created now. So what I was saying to you guys before is that quite often, now my break is how I want it, or at least this version of it, I quite often bounce this to sample, go back into the sample editor and then chop it into 16. And I know that I've got 16 perfect chops because it's all on the grid at 176. But because it's kind of, you know, quite easy to manage, we've just got these 12 actual drum sounds. I'm actually going to keep it. So there's two ways you could work. You could either go the bounce the sample then chop route, or you could just keep these gridlocked samples, these individual hits, which is more flexible but slightly harder to manage. But I can just see, you know, even though I could do it with the chops, I can just see now that I'm going to enjoy working with this track a lot more. If I've got all these to select from, I can transpose them to, you know, rearrange the pattern if I want, so on and so forth. So I'm going to keep this as is. So what do we do now to get the variation? So this is one of my kind of magic workflow tips that I've been using for years and years. Some of you guys might already do it. It's probably very obvious to some people, but to some of you others that aren't too familiar with the MPC format, it's one of the most powerful things. And it has actually brought up an issue with functionality and what could be improved in the MPC. I've actually submitted this as a feature request now, and it's the ability to choke programs in the same way that you would choke pads within a program. The reason why is because quite often I'll go, right, this is my first sequence. Now my next move would be to copy this sequence to sequence 2. So now I've got 2 identical copies of this sequence. My drums are on track 1. Let's do some housekeeping. Drums, there, and let's call this drums dist 1. So I know that's my drum distortion 1 version of this break. So if we go down to sequence 1, we've still got that, that's on the same track. Let's change sequence 1 track name to drums again. So drums are going to be on my first track for every sequence. It doesn't matter that I'm going to actually switch between the programs. So what I've done is I've duplicated the sequences. So we've got the same program on sequence 1 and sequence 2. But now what I'm going to do is copy or duplicate this program. Because let's just hypothetically say that we had longer samples. You saw that I flattened all these. Now they are just short hits and they're not going to continue playing over the next sequence. When you switch sequences in the MPC, if you've got a different program on a second sequence, which I have here, this program won't cut off the previous notes that might be trailing off, and often you get clashes. So it's a feature request that I've put in. Yeah, there's an easy workaround. You could just set all your drum hits to note on, and then make sure all your note lengths are extended to the length you want them, and particularly the ones at the end don't go over the sequence and run into the next sequence. But it would just be a really handy sort of shortcut to stop that behavior happening. So when you switch sequences, if you had any drum sounds or any long string sounds and you wanted them just cut dead, you wouldn't have to put like a ghost note in with no sound just to chop it off, you know, if it was in mono mode. Or I hope you get what I mean. But if you could actually choke programs, that would be a really good feature. But anyway, I digress. So what I've done is duplicated the sequence. Now we've got 2 copies of this drum distortion, and now actually I've just changed that back. Why did I do that? There you go. Now I'm going to affect this to give it another kind of vibe. So it currently sounds like this. So that's nice. It's distorted, but it doesn't really sound distorted, particularly in context with the other one. The other one sounds more affected. Okay, so that's all fair and good. Now I'm going to create a third copy. So I'm going to duplicate or copy the sequence to sequence 3. Now again, these sequences aren't set in stone. As you can see, I've now got 3 sequences. They're only 2 bars long, but I might keep these on my first 4 sequences. I might have, yeah, I think I'm going to have 4 variations of this drum, just 2-bar loops, so I can chop between them. But something I've started doing recently is moving up to the next row of sequences, so 5 to 8. And they will be the extended versions. So these are kind of like the fill versions that I can just chop in between if I want. But also, if we double tap next sequence, we can arrange these in the sequencer, as some of you may already know, and then we can actually export those as longer sequences. So that's how I've kind of developed my sequences quite often, is make really short ones, stitch them together, end up with long ones, and then I can either get rid of the original short ones, because they're kind of like test sequences, if you get my drift. So what have we got? So we've got 3 sequences. Now this third one has got the same drums from sequence 2. So it's drums dist 1-1. So we now need to duplicate that again. Now we've got drums dist 1-2. Another effect that I've been using quite often now, so as you can see now we've got 3 programs here. I'm actually going to delete program 001 because it's just in the way. There you go. So yeah, on sequence 1 we've got drums dist 1, sequence 2 we've got drums dist 1.1 or 1-1, sequence 3 we've got drums dist 1-2. Now that sounds the same as the drums dist 1.1. We now need to affect this. So what was I saying? I was saying that, yeah, another effect that I quite like to use, which I'm going to put on this third copy, is, excuse me, is the high pass delay. So the reason I like this is because it's got a resonance control, and you can get some really wobbly, sort of weird glitchy things out of it if you've got the time parameter really, really low. So the lowest it will go is 2. I keep the feedback at 50 for this because it can get really crazy and distorted if you increase beyond 50. And yeah, I'm going to muck about with the cutoff. So this is on the entire program, right? So I'm not going to just slap loads of delay. In fact, no, I tell a lie. I'm going to go to the program editor for this third copy of this distorted drums, and I'm just going to put it on the snare, on this first snare on my second pad. So delay HP, take it off all. Now that didn't apply the effect at all. Some of you might not know this, but if you select all zones, you can't put an effect on all your zones or all your pads. That's one of the things that you can't do in all or multiple. I think it would just overload it if you're adding all those effects at one time to like 128 different pads. Right, so that's just on our snare, that high pass delay. So let's play it back. Now, something I've been doing lately is just introducing a little bit of dry wet with the time at 2. The resonance, you can, I'll let you hear what that sounds like in a minute. It gives some really nice results just on individual hits. So I've got my Q-link here with dry wet. I'm going to adjust that as we play the sequence back. So you get this really nice kind of pipe, sort of metallic tank sound. You've got to be really careful with it though, because as you heard, that resonance can really ring out if you go a bit too crazy with it. But yeah, it's really nice to just introduce a little bit here and there. It's a shame that we can't get the LFO. This is something else that I think I've requested from Akai Pro in the past, is if we, let's close that, for the LFO modulation destinations. I mean, we've just got 4 at the moment. I get it, you know, we've got 128 pads in just one program at our disposal, so having multiple destinations. But if there was some kind of cap that we could adhere to, you know, that would be fine. At least we could actually do a bit more modular glitchy stuff like you can in the Octatrack with how you can route your destinations. But if we could affect things like, you know, of course we can automate this with the Q-links, but I'd quite like that to, you know, be jumping up and down. The only workaround is maybe if you copied this pad to another pad and then sort of varied the actual hits that were actually landing on the ones with, you know, the different effects on it. But I'm just going to keep it simple for now with this. I'm just going to keep it like that because don't forget we've got 2 other copies of this drum program. That's really nice. Akatengu, which effects did the metallic sounds? It's the high pass filter. Sorry, no, it's a high pass delay HP, high pass delay. You can watch this video back, guys, if you've missed anything or if I'm going too fast or if there's loads of rambling that you just want to skip. You can watch this again when it's fully uploaded. So now what I'm going to do is do the same again, copy the sequence. Sorry, just having a drink of water. I've got a bit of a dry throat there, chaps. There you go, a bit of spring water. Right, so we've got a fourth sequence, all exactly the same as everything else. Now, this is our third copy, Drums Disc 1.2. In fact, let's rename it. Let's rename it to Drums Disc 3. Let's go back down to sequence 3. That's Drums Disc 3, as we can see. So as you sort of refine the sequences and all the naming, you start to see the logic going on with, you know, particularly why I actually do this myself. It really makes things so much easier. It's worth putting all this in rather than just blindly going in, smashing a load of samples together, and then you want to turn it into a more elaborate song, excuse me, and do you know what I mean? You can get lost very easy in the MPC. It's good to name things. So we've got Drums Disc 1, Drums Disc 2, Drums Disc 3. It's the same on sequence 4, but we need to duplicate that for a final time. Let's name that to Drums Disc 4. Now with this one, I'm going to experiment with the pitch. So it's playing back at its root pitch. We've got distortion grimy on it. And we've also got on that snare that high pass. So I might take that off for this version because we've got it in the previous version. Yeah, same OS. Just reading the comments, guys. I take it all this can be done on the live too. Yeah, of course. It's just that you've got the Q links for the X, so it does make it. Actually, now I think back to using the live. I don't miss the live. It was amazing, and I wouldn't be here now doing this if I hadn't got the live. It's a great little machine. In fact, making videos are a lot easier on the live because it's so much smaller and you can show everything. With this, I want to show you guys the whole control panel because I use it so much. When I first got this, sorry to go off on a tangent, we'll get back to the music in a minute, but I was lost. I was like, you know, muscle memory was telling me to do all the things that I used to do on the MPC Live. But when I got this, I just was bewildered with the amount of sort of sort of top panel controls. But now, I mean, I'm completely fine with it now, and I do prefer it. The build quality, quite a few people have asked me this, and this isn't to, you know, sort of say anything detrimental about the live. I just prefer the MPCX. I miss the portability of the live. It would be really nice, and it was a bit hasty for me to have sold it to get this, but I had no other choice. I had to sell it to fund this. It kind of cuts me off from doing any kind of mad videos for you lot outside of my studio. So yeah, that's the only downside to it, the portability. Even if this could run off a massive lithium battery, I wouldn't want to take it out. It'd be ridiculous. I wouldn't want to be sat in the park with this on my lap. But yeah, so yeah, the live is great. You can do everything you can on the X bar. You know, you've got the modular stuff that you can do with the CV outs. Anyway, where were we? We were going to adjust the pitch. So as I said, this is playing back the root pitch. We've not adjusted these drums away from the original pitch of the Oneness of Juju sample. So this is the other good thing about not particularly manually chopping, but because I did manually chop, I've got more control over these hits, and I've chosen them a bit more thoughtfully. With the chop facility in the sampler, it is brilliant. I really love it, and I do use it all the time, but I find that I don't spend too much time with it. I usually use it when I've actually gridlocked a sample and I've bounced it out or resampled it, and then I know that I can just stick it into regions and it'll be perfect for 16 regions, right? Let's clear that. But most of the time I just do everything from scratch now because it just gives you a bit more, I don't know, I find the drums sound a bit better when you start pitching them around and you've got them all really precise and they're all flattened, you're saving memory, and it just gives for a bit of a clearer sort of mindset when you're dealing with these things. So as you can hear, it sounds quite nice pitched up. There's no glitches. It doesn't sound like it's skipping because I've got all those individual hits on the grid. Let's see how these sounds in context with the others. Right, so let's copy this sequence, sequence 5. Let's now go to, we want to copy our drums dist 1. So for some reason that's gone to, maybe I was on drums, maybe I was on sequence 1. It doesn't matter. Now let's copy that last drums dist 4, or duplicate. Let's call it drums dist 5. Lost a few. 25 watching. Amazing. I wonder if it's this, is it the same 25 people? Who knows? But thanks, whoever you are. If you've come in and gone away, come back again, it's all much appreciated. Drums dist 5. Right, so now I'm going to try this at another different semitone. Yep, that sounds quite nice. Now, because we've decreased the entire pitch of the entire program, obviously all these hits are going to be playing back slower now. This doesn't sound too bad, but if you guys were doing this and things start to sound a little bit sloppy, to tighten things up, you can go back to your amp envelope, make sure you've selected all again, and then you can just tighten up that decay or adjust the sustain as well, and that will help out. I'll just let you have a listen. So it's nice and tight as it is, but let's actually go, where are we? Down the bottom here. Actually, it's too much. It might be the sustain that will help us out. So I quite like using this sort of shortening of the actual amp envelope, you know, to get this choppy sound, to have drums that we can use for intros. So it's not too energetic, it's nice and rolling, it's got a nice little bit of punch to it. I'm going to take that, I'm going to actually keep this version. So this exercise, I do apologise if I get to, like, how long have we been on? We've been on an hour. If I get to an hour and a half and I've not actually made any music, I hope that this has been a good exercise for you guys in how to get beats going and a few little techniques. But this is also a good thing to do, you know, to sit down and not sort of say, oh, I'm going to make a track, I'm going to make content. Then you've got your weapons. It's really good to build up a content library. And what I've been doing, you know, it's probably part of the reason why I've been quite quiet on YouTube for the last month or a few weeks. I've been busy with other stuff, but I have made some music, but I've been making a lot of content, and I've got a folder that's called 176 now, because I'm really back into my jungle now on drum and bass, and I've been doing mostly drum and bass and jungle breaks. And I've got a big folder of perfectly chopped, you know, breaks that all work at 176. And it means that when I actually do go and sit down, I can go, right, let's make a jungle track. And I've got all my own samples. They're all my own original samples. All right, I've taken them from other records, but I've manipulated them to a point where they're pretty much my own breaks. They've just got that raw quality that all of us look for in vinyl samples and samples in general. But I've built up this big database now, and it's increasing, and I'm finding things are getting easier the more that I've got at my disposal rather than sort of looking around for samples to work. I know these will work at this tempo. And particularly if I've actually saved the program, I can just bring the program into whatever project I want and mix and match. So it's a good practice just to sit here and generate actual breaks and samples just for content. So this would essentially be like an intro drum break. And then you could start chopping in between your other breaks. So we'll let this run for a few more bars and then cut in another one. And of course, we've not even done anything with the patterns. These patterns are all the same. So what we could do is go back to the next sequence, just have a bit of a recap. We've got these 5 sequences. Now, because it's an odd number, I quite like to be a little bit mathematical with these things sometimes. I like to get an even number. So I could actually create another 3 sequences, and it doesn't really matter so much, but it just keeps things in order in my mad head that, you know, like I've got 8 sequences. These ones are kind of like the ones that I can chop between, and then the next 8 can potentially be different variations, but I don't think I'm going to do that. What I'm going to do, I think, is stitch these together and then chop the whole lot. Okay, so I've got my raw content now. Now I could carry on with this, carry on processing the breaks, but I think I've got enough now. I think I've got like a main break that can kick in. And I've got this kind of hybrid one, which is kind of got musical content in it because of what the distortion's doing to those kicks and that low frequency content in there. So what I'm going to do is double tap my next sequence button, and I'm just going to insert some sequence slots. So insert 5. Excuse me. Now this is going to be an odd number, as said, but we're just going to put them in order. Sequence 1, 2, 5. So like I said before, I wasn't really planning on doing this, because what I wanted to do is actually make these sequences more elaborate and then start sort of, you know, changing the patterns around. But I think what I'm going to do is bounce this entire song out. So it's only going to be 10 bars long, and then we can just create chops out of that. Right, so convert to sequence, and that's going to convert that to sequence 6. Now we can go up to sequence 6. It says from song 1, which is correct. I'm going to press the pencil icon, and I'm just going to bounce that to sample, and that will bounce those 10 bars to a sample. Bounce from song 1, and there you go. There's all our sequences in one sample now. Aha, but what it's done, this is the problem. It's not changing the program as we go. If I'd have put those on different tracks, it would have done that. So that's the downside of that. So for example, if sequence 2, our drums are on track 2, it would have done that for us. So that's the only other thing. That's another issue that I would like to see resolved. I mean, it's, you know, it's not really something that Akai should have to do. It's just the way things work in here. But the way I work, that would suit me down to the ground if you could export that sequence and those drums kind of follow it, which is a shame. Right, okay. Right, now I'm just trying to think of the best way to proceed with this, because I can either, I think what I'm going to do is extend my sequences to 16 bars each. That's the most logical thing. The only problem there is I don't get to show you another really good technique of transposing things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to export each individual sequence. Okay, so bounce the sample, sequence 2, bounce the sample, sequence 3, bounce the sample, sequence 4, sequence 5. And we're going to delete sequence 6 for now, or clear it. Now, sometimes, I don't know if you guys notice this, but sometimes when you bounce from track or bounce from sequence, it doesn't actually bounce anything and it's silent. And then you forget which one you need to bounce, you've got to go back. But it's been well behaved this evening. Right, so now we've got perfect 2-bar loops of all our sequence drum breaks. So I'm going to normalise these. Sequence 1. Now the only other problem is because I didn't name my sequence, this is to show you again that it's important to name your sequences as well. It's bounced out the sequences, or bounced out these, you know, because I've bounced it from the sequence and it's named it bounce-sequence 2, which is fine and that's how it should be, but I should have really named the sequences to also correspond with the tracks and the programs. But I didn't. There you go, you live and learn. Now I'll show you another trick you can do with drums, which I'm sure I've shown before. Let's delete that long version because that wasn't of any use. So you can see here that mostly this sample fills our, you know, our space here, the ceiling of the actual waveform there. It's, you know, it's nice and big and chunky. I don't want to do too much to it, but we could increase the gain of that and it wouldn't really notice, you wouldn't really hear much clipping. So because we've normalized it, for those of you that don't know the term, when you normalize something, it increases the volume of a given sound to its maximum value before it starts going into digital distortion. But if you've already normalized something and you just want to give it an extra bit of a boost, you can actually increase the gain without it distorting too much. So this is how it sounds dry. Actually, and let's increase the gain of that. I'm not going to do this for every sample. I might not even do it for this one because it doesn't really need it. But you can see it really fattens things up now. Yeah, that's not too bad at all. So I'm going to do the same for this. I'm going to, did I normalize? I think I normalized that already, didn't I? Yeah, let's increase the gain. So you've got to be careful with this because some of these samples were, you know, they're slightly different in their texture and timbre and sort of overall quality because I've pitched some of them and put different effects. You'll find that you know, if you're adding gain to them, they might be a bit sort of out of sync with their levels, with their actual volume. This one's massive. I think that's because I've done it twice because I'm losing my concentration a bit. Let's go to sequence 4 and sequence 5. Now, I know I've been on breaks for that entire video and we're like an hour and 10 minutes in, but this is what I do. I sit here and put all this time in, and it probably would have taken me quicker if I didn't feel slightly under the, what's the word? Under the hammer? Because this is live. Anyway, I'm making excuses now. Let's press trim, go to chop. Now I'm going to start chopping these. So if we go into regions, I'm going to chop that into, not 16, I'm going to chop it into 8. Yeah, let's chop those into 8. Okay. So I'm going to convert that to a new drum program, non-destructive slices, do it. I should really name these chops, but I'm not going to because we're live and it's just going to take me forever. It already has. Let's go up to bounce sequence 2. Let's go to regions, chop that into 8, convert, do it. I can actually change these chop program names afterwards anyway. Regions 8, convert, do it. Regions 8, convert, do it. And there you go. Did that do it? No. Right. So now I'm going to keep my first sequence. I'm going to delete my second sequence or clear it. I'm going to clear everything else actually, just so we're all nice and clear and tidy, and we've just got the chops that we've created. And that's it. I might even clear, yeah, I'm just going to clear sequence 1. Start from afresh. Right. 176. Now we need to go to our bounce. I'm going to keep all these programs because, as you remember, they're just using 12 hits, the same 12 hits, but they've just got different effects on them. So it's taken up very little memory. The only things that are taking up considerable memory now, not even considerable, are these bounces now. Right, the reason why I've done this is because if we go to this first program, okay, this has got the first program's chopped samples in on the first 8 pads. Now, because we chopped those other versions of this, we can now just add them to the same program. Unfortunately, as you can see, this is another reason. This whole video is turning into a lesson about renaming stuff and why it's important. This box isn't big enough for us to see which version. Can you see it? It's just staying on bounce-sequence. We can't even, you know, it stops at the second E in sequence, so we can't even see which version we are. I'm just having to guess it by looking at it. So what we want is the second sample, and we want the first pad. Okay, so copy that to these pads. So now I've got my second bounce on the upper row of 8 pads. So now I can start transposing, and I've got these breaks chopped. This is where it gets efficient, okay? All I need to do now is change the actual pad. So because we chopped it, change the actual slice, sorry. Sorry about that. Slice 2. I wish you could press and hold shift and press a pad and it wouldn't trigger it, because that's kind of annoying. Let's take it off, put it back on current. I'm just going to turn it down a bit. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's go to pad bank B. Let's choose the third iteration of that sample. Let's set that to slice 1. 1, 2, 3. This is where it gets confusing because I'm on like sample 3, pad 2, sample 5, pad 1, pad 6, sample 9. It's not that difficult. Okie dokie. Hope that's not too loud for you guys. The intelligent investor, maybe you can suggest to Akai that the text in the box scrolls to see. Yeah, I have suggested that, Mr. Intelligent Investor. I've suggested a similar thing, or just actually, you know, making the text smaller, but then that might be harder for people who've got limited vision. Yeah, scrolling text boxes would be handy, but at the end of the day, you know, it's quite a long sample name that I've got in there, bounce-sequence 01 chop. I don't know. It's probably down to us, really, isn't it, to rename things. Anyway, let's carry on. So that's pad 3. Let's choose that again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3. Okay. It's pad 5, pad 6, pad 7, pad 8. And now we've got that other version. Or have we? Have we got? We did do 5 versions, didn't we? 2, 3, 4. There you go. Now I'm going to make things quicker now. Multiple, copy. Don't need to select multiple pads, don't know why I'm doing that. Just want to copy that pad to all these pads. God, I'm losing it tonight. Copy this pad to these pads. There you go. Now let's change that to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got one more to do. Put that in pad bank C. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's press copy. We're going to copy this first pad in pad bank C to these last 7 pads here. Okay, that took ages too, but there you go. So let's do the same as we did in the first instance. Let's just put that first break in from pad bank A now. So now what we can do is we can start transposing these. So we've got just 2 bars. So now let's extend this sequence, double the length rather. So we've doubled it to 4, doubled it to 8. So press it 3 times. We've now got 16 bars. Let's just zoom out. We can see all our hits there. So you can see in the grid editor we're using pads A01 to pad A08. All we need to do to get those variations where the bars changes is literally transpose these. So it's worth putting all this work in now, because now it starts to become a bit more automated, so to speak. So the first 3 bars, the first 6 bars are going to play back these original hits. In fact, I'm going to shift those up to our last one. So our first sequence plays the kind of simple ones that we did. And then we just need to do the same again for the second half of these 16 bars. So I'm going to grab all of these. Let's just transpose them up, and we can deal with the last bar afterwards. And we missed out that first note. I say we, it's me, isn't it? It's not you. You're not to blame. Let's put that there. And let's transpose these. Let's transpose them down to B8. I think that should work. So yeah, there was a bit of a weird thing going on there. That's because, are we on B16? Yeah, we are. We need to transpose those up 1 semitone. Just those, please. I think, yeah. I've never noticed that before, but you actually get... That's actually showing me, just quickly flashes up. I've never noticed that before. Anyway, there you go. Doesn't sound too bad that, but I'd rather it not do that. I want it to just play back these how it should. So I think I've done the same thing. Maybe I need to just transpose those down again. Yeah. No, maybe I need to go up. There you go. What's going on there? It's quite hard to see this. Yeah, we're on the wrong one. So now we've got a 16 bar sequence with all those different chops in there. We can just, you know, get this sequence how we want, duplicate this sequence. So the track is really starting to expand now. So next we'll have 32 bars worth to play with, or just a separate 16. And we can just go in and edit at our leisure all these different chops and chop between them. I'm kind of doing this in a bit of a, you know, obviously it's live and I haven't planned this at all, other than sourcing these first two samples. I've not even got to the second sample yet, but let's add that in now. So at least we can get some kind of musicality in this now, not just a beat. Although I am liking this beat, it's good. So the good thing about this is we've now returned to one sequence with one track. So I'm on track 2 now. I'm just going to press my drum program to create a new one. It's defaulted to program 001. Now we can take a listen to this Quincy Jones sample. So I'm not going to do any purging just yet. Where's the Quincy Jones? There it is. Let's choose this pad and load it onto there. Now again, I'm not going to go into the sample editor just as yet. I think what I'm going to do is find the sounds I want and flatten the pad again. So that's a really nice string sound in there. Very small, but we can loop that up. It's good enough for me. Now, don't know if any of you guys have noticed, but if you've got your pad in note on mode, you can't flatten it. So we just have to switch that to one shot just while we flatten it. I'm going to rename it to Quincy String. Just going back to that copyright issue that someone mentioned. Sorry, I do forget who brought it up earlier. But it's a bit of a weird one, because I've always thought that, you know, if you're sampling someone, not making money from it, you know, I'm not charging any of you guys to watch this video. All right, it's good promotion for me in the long run, but I'm not directly getting any money for this at all. I'm just using this as sample content, and I couldn't really understand why anyone would get flagged for using such a small section that's going to be so obscured. But at the same time, if someone's interested in those samples, they can go and find them now, because they know that this is from Quincy Jones, Love Me By Name. So it's just brilliant promotion for the original artist. You know, they are going to get some traffic coming back to them because of that. But, you know, that's how the legal system works. Copyright, it's very, very odd area. Yes.
Yes, let's talk about legal things and play with samples and make great beats. Junglist Massive, that's right. Intellectual property, Junglist Massive. So there's a string. Mr. Joshua UK, love the You're a Junglist so much. MPC hip hop on YouTube. It's nice to do something. Thank you very much. Yeah, I do like my hip hop, but yeah, I try and mix it up on the old MPC. Who else? Has anyone else come in that I haven't acknowledged? No, I spoke to all you guys. I'm just scrolling up. Oh, we've increased from 21 to 25. Thank you very much. Right. Gone off right on a tangent. Supposed to be making music. So let's go to our second pad and let's find something else from Quincy Jones, Love Me By Name. That's really nice. Let's flatten that. Quincy. Now, what is that? It's a triangle, isn't it? Is that a Rhodes keyboard in there? Maybe a vibraphone? I think it's probably... I don't know. I've no idea. I think it's a Rhodes. Could be... Who cares? Let's just call it Quincy Rhodes. Quincy Rhodes 1. Let's get Quincy again.
Cried so.
That'll do. I didn't rename that one. Bit naughty there. Now I'm not going to use these as is. I'm probably going to manipulate them so I don't get Quincy Jones knocking on my door for some royalties.
Be carefree.
Right. There's not too much else I'm going to use from this.
It's hard. To be careful. To be careful.
So that'll do. So what I'm going to do with this string is I'm going to load it into layer 2. So Quincy string, and I'm going to pitch shift it. Quincy string, 5 semitones down. And let's loop it as well. The other thing I like to do with string sounds and pad sounds is, because we're in loop mode and note on, can just adjust our amp envelope attack and release, so we get a nice fade in and fade out. So you can see that my VU meter is clipping there probably. That's because I haven't done my mixing housekeeping. So we're covering lots of things in this, guys. If you've stuck with me for this long, fair play to you. Hopefully you're picking some business up. I'm covering loads of different things in this. I know I'm going fast. That's just the way it goes. So you might have seen in my mixing and mastering video, is that I like to bring my program volumes down only if I've got multiple programs to deal with. But because we're just dealing with one program now, I can actually keep this entire program level at 0. It's this one here actually, and just adjust the actual individual pads. But actually I'm not going to do that because they're all nicely balanced with each other, and so I am going to actually take this entire program volume down about 9 decibels. And the reason for that is, sorry, I just knocked my camera. You're going to get a wobble. The reason I've done that is because this is still peaking at around -10 dB, and when I go to actually record this or bounce this out, I do want a bit of space. I don't want to bounce this out as a brick-walled waveform that I can't actually do any mastering with within Ableton Live, which I use for when I actually do my mastering. So I'm going to keep this at a nice conservative volume, and it will also give us space for that string sound. I could obviously normalize that string sound, and I should do really, and then just bring the pad volume of that string sound down. So what I'm going to do is, let's call this Quincy's Bits. Oh, so that's Quincy Bits on track 2. Nice and organized. Quincy Bits. Sequence 1, track 2, Quincy Bits, track 1, we've got this bounce. Let's call that our breaks. Let's call it Juju breaks because we got it from, actually let's call it oneness, because it was oneness of Juju. Oneness breaks, there you go. And let's call that oneness. Right, get in there. Boy Slim Lo-Fi, nice pick. What's that, mate, if you're still here? The Quincy track. Nice pick. I imagine. Unless you saw me picking my nose in the reflection. Not that I did, but you might have thought I did. I wouldn't do that on camera. It's disgusting. Just do it when there's no camera there. Right. Now let's normalise this string sample. We don't want to press slice. Why did I do that? Let's clear all just in case. Let's go to normalise. Now this is going to make this massive, so we're really going to have to bring the volume down on the pad now. There you go. So you notice that sometimes when you're recording a long held loop and it goes back to the start of the sequence, it cuts off and you have to play it again, which is a little bit frustrating if you were playing live and just you had your metronome off and you just wanted to record something in. Excuse me. The only workaround is to actually put the note in manually and then, you know, adjust the edit end or just drag it out. And just drag it out for the duration you want it. But that's in there now. So it's nice to use a bit of 16 level on these hits that you don't really, well, at this point I don't really know what pitch I want them at. So 16 level is brilliant for that. We don't necessarily have to, you know, permanently adjust the semitones. We can test it, but I prefer to go into 16 levels for that. So yeah, I don't know whether to go light or dark with this, or a mixture of the two. I think it would be nice to have something like it's doing now, and then take it somewhere dark. So lead people into a full sense of security and then just let them have it. Might even bring some aiming in. I don't know how long I'm going to stay here for, guys. If my watch view count sort of hovers around for you guys, I don't know, 25 to 30 people watching, I'll keep going for another couple of hours maybe. I think I'll go to midnight. So we've got an hour and 25 minutes left to get this sounding a bit more elaborate. And then I'll work on the track and I'll just give it to you guys as a free download or something like that. How's that? Don't know if I'm keen on that second one. This one works. So where to go from here? We've just got a really basic sequence, bit of an atmosphere going with a string. So we've only got 16 bars. So I wouldn't have this string obviously coming in on the first beat. So from this point, I'd double the length. I'm happy enough with the drums. I'm going to go back and give them some more variation over those 32 bars. What have we got now? We've got 128 bars. So let's undo that, back to 64 bars. So I think for the first 16 bars, I'm going to knock out the drums and just have the string. I will put some percussion in it. So obviously, if you're making dance music, it's good to kind of have some kind of percussive elements for a DJ's purposes. If this was ever to get played out on a DJ set. So let's go down to track 1. Now, what we could do is create a duplicate of the entire breakbeat program that I made out of all those individual hits. So let's duplicate that. Now this is where you've got to be careful because these are now longer hits, and this is where you're going to have to, what I was talking about before about the actual track polyphony, or not having the ability to put programs into mute groups. This is where when we switch sequences, so what I'm going to do is basically, in fact, we don't need to do that. I've done another one of my go off on a rant things. What I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to put this duplicate copy of our breakbeat program onto a different track and change that at bar 32, I think. So the first 32 bars are going to have, the first 16 bars are going to have no breaks. I think the second 16 bars are going to have this copy, which I'm going to put a filter on or something to actually make it sound really light and backgrounded. And then on bar 32, we're going to kick in with the main break. And from there on, I can start adding some variation up to bar 64. It's usually around bar 64 that I like a drop to come in, or just a break to come in. And then on bar 81, or rather at the end of bar 64, start of bar 65, it drops out. And then everything kicks back in on 81. That might be a bit too soon, but we'll see how we go. So for the first 16 bars, let's actually put that back to one this breaks one. So there's one this breaks one. Let's affect that first. Just for the sake of easiness, I think I'm going to put a high pass filter on the entire program. I'll probably change this after, but I just want to show you my sort of workflow for putting a track together, really. It's on the wrong break, there it is. Heavy on the resonance. Now what we could do with this break is again shorten the amp envelope to make it again sound a bit more like an intro percussion, but because you've got that relationship with the fact that it's the same break and it's going to lead into the main break, it kind of fits more than just putting a random cymbal in or some percussive stuff. I quite like to work this way, is put in a percussive copy of a breakbeat, if that's the right or the best way to explain it. So let's choose all pads for this breaks one copy that we've got, and mess about with the envelope again. We could actually mess about with a filter in here. I might do that after if this isn't working. Maybe a bit of reverb on there. I like the reverb large too. I've said this in many other videos before. Don't mean to interrupt. Just haven't been able to figure that out at all. Loving this stream of work. What's that, Kenny? Haven't been able to figure what out, mate? And then I can let you know. Record and play still use the same way, buttons only, sound bank. Oh. So I'm going to put a low high cut on this reverb, make it sound a bit darker. Okay, so I'm going to have this for the first 16 bars, this break. So because I've got the pattern programmed in on track 1 for the entire 64 bars, I'm going to double this length twice, so we've got 256 bars, which in drum and bass terms for something at 176 is around, I believe, 5.5, maybe 6 minutes long, maybe just over 6 minutes. I can't work it out exactly, but that will do me for now, 256 bars. So I know now that my break is on the same track for the entire sequence. So I've even now gone back, even though we're like an hour and 3/4 in, to yet another workflow that I always seem to end up returning to, and that's this kind of one track. I call it the one track mind. So you stay in one track for a particular sound. So I kind of know that this entire song now, or rather, sorry, it's one sequence, not one track. I do apologise. I don't really need to change sequences now because I've put myself on a route with this first sequence, and I know that I can just add tracks now to this one sequence. I don't really need to change this because I know everything that I've done up to this point has kind of put me on this path to stick with this kind of workflow, if that makes sense. I hope it's kind of making a bit more sense to you guys now. I don't need to switch sequences because we've got 256 bars. I know that I can go into this first track with all these break beats. I can go to bar 64 or bar 129 or bar 205 or whatever, and do my little change ups with these breaks because I've got so much to play with within this one program now because I've built this program. Obviously you've seen me build it in front of you. And I know that on my second track, I've got all my nice Quincy Jones bits that I've barely touched. I've just literally made a string sound. And now it's just a matter of getting rid of things out of this sequence. So now I can go back to my first track, and I don't even actually have to delete. I kind of probably do actually, to be honest, because this breaks. I can't actually change this in this track. So I do have to actually copy this to another track and then switch the program. So that's what I'm going to do now. So let's go up to track 3. Let's go back to our oneness breaks, which is our main break. But we haven't got any notes on this track at the moment, right? So what I'm going to do is copy the events from track 1 to track 3. Okay, so let's go to a pencil icon. Let's go to events, sequence 1. Now we want to choose track 1, which is the oneness break. Okay, so it's the intro version of it that I've put the high pass filter on. I'm going to copy the entire 256 bars, just for simplicity's sake. And I'm going to copy it to track 3 in the same sequence. So they will clash, but I'm going to do some deleting in a minute. So I'm just going to press replace. We've got 1 copies. It's going to start on bar 1, and it's going to go copy all the way through to bar 257. So replace that. And now what we can do is go down to track 1. We can see all our notes are in there. Okay. And now we can literally just delete. So what we want to do is delete everything after bar 17, because we want the high pass filter copy of this to last 16 bars. Okay. So I am going to go to erase, simple as that, and we can just erase from bar 17 to 257, first sequence, first track, oneness break, all, and do it. Now we need to go up to track 3. Sorry, I've gone up to sequence 3. Track 3. And now we need to do the same. We need to erase track 3, which is our main break, from the first 16 bars. So it starts on the 17th bar. So we have our intro break, and then it just kicks in. And now we can start to sort of structure our song. So let's go, from bar 1 up to bar 17. Do it. And now that should play back fine. The only thing that we've got to watch out for is what happens at the end of track 1 here. So we can just play that back from here. It's fine because I chopped it into 8s, and we've got a hit on every, 4 beats here. That sample will just stop, even though it's not a note on, it's a one shot. It won't carry on into 17 and clash with our main break. Oh, I've dropped below 20. We've lost some heads. Never mind. Okay, so that's the kind of basis of the track. Now, at this stage, I probably would start adding some bass sounds or something just to get the kind of, I don't know, just to form the basis of the actual bass element of this drum and bass track that I'm making, or this jungle track. Just to give it that kind, just so I kind of know where I'm going with it, rather than just doing, I mean, I could stick with the drum breaks, and that's another sort of method that I do, is I leave everything. I probably mute the string, but because you guys are watching, you're just going to keep hearing the same break, and it's just going to be the break on its own. No matter how much you like the break, you're probably just going to get bored of it at some point. So I could start mucking around with that, but I think I'm just going to find a bass sound. What time is it? We've got 10 minutes till 11. What's Kenny at? I'm just going to answer some of these questions. Yeah, you know what, chaps? I'm going to do a Q&A for half an hour in 10 minutes time, because I'll probably come back to this and I'll do another live stream. This has been 2 hours, to be fair, so it's been quite a long time. I do need a bit of a break. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to have a break now, right? So just please do stick around, and at 11 o'clock GMT I will do a Q&A with you guys to help you out, just to thank you, just to thank you for giving me your time tonight. Kenny S, when's your next live stream? Don't know, mate. This was off the cuff. I was working today at home and I just thought, I haven't uploaded any proper tutorials lately, so yeah, I did a few at the weekend just to test, and I've got the streaming good now. I've had no complaints on here. So yeah, this is my third live stream. I did one on Friday. It was really choppy, and I appreciate everyone that chimed in on that to let me know that the video quality wasn't great. The sound was good. That one's up online. The second one I didn't really like the content in that one, so I'm going to edit that, and I may upload that at a later date or soon. This is my first ever live stream tutorial, so yeah, that's why it's gone a bit sort of, it's not gone too bad. I'm actually quite happy with it, so I'm not going to be negative about it, but yeah, it's quite a lot of pressure knowing that everyone's watching, and oh, maybe not everyone. They're dropping like flies, unless they're just going to come back at 11, hopefully. Please do come back at 11, chaps, and I'll do a Q&A if you want. So yeah, I'll do another one of these, Kenny. Yeah, definitely, I'm going to be doing these regularly. In fact, I didn't tell you guys this, but I should be getting hold of some kind of DJ mixing system very soon. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I might be able to get hold of one from somewhere and start doing some old school drum and bass, old school hip hop mixes, mixing my own stuff. It's going to be one of these, you know, all-in-one DJ built-in things with, you know, MP3s and stuff. And I'll be doing some live mixes like that. But I'm just going to have a break, guys, for the next 5 or 6 minutes, and I'll come back at 11 and I'll answer your questions. Yeah, thanks, Kenny, for those. Jaguaro85, you're welcome. Could you do a video about the music structure? Well, yeah, I mean, this kind of was about that. If you've just tuned in, Jaguaro85, I do apologise, but you can go back and look at this. But yeah, I could do a dedicated thing to song structure. I'm not a genius at song structure by any means. I kind of wing it and just do what I feel right. Most of my tracks follow a similar structure, you know, like 16 bar. I quite often use 16 bar sequences. Anyway, we're doing a Q&A already. I'm just going to have a break, if you don't mind, guys, and I will answer these questions for half an hour after 11 p.m. And yeah, I'll see you guys in a bit. I'm not going to switch the video off. I'm just going to switch my mic off and just have a bit of a drink of water. And I will see you guys in about 5 minutes time.
Just don't know my style. Rewind, 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 rewind. Can't you see? Rewind, 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 rewind,
Right, I'm back. That was Rinse by Ray Keith. Let's have a look. Yeah, Rinse by Ray Keith, and I don't know if that came out on a single, but that was on this album, Telepathy, Jungle Don's Dubplate Special. Great album. Anyway, Q&A, guys. If you've got any questions, I'm going to save this project. Let's call it Oneness. In fact, I'm going to call it Oneness 2. 1, 2. Oh yeah, you can hear me. 1, 2, 1, 2. Stop that. Yeah. Oneness 2. So I forgot to purge, but there you go. That's my mic. So I'm just going to load up the first version I did of this earlier that gave me the idea to do this. So I've obviously done all this from scratch at the start of this live stream, but I'll just show you the difference. So this is what we ended up with after 2 hours tonight. so on and so forth. So let's just load in the original, which gave me the idea to do this. Let's load this in. Just want to see how it sounds from what I was doing this afternoon. Yeah, so pretty much the same kind of thing. Anyway, Q&A, guys. Got any questions? What's Kenny saying? I made a script for training. Kenny saying I made an AHK. What's that? What's an AHK script? Sorry, Kenny, I don't know what that is. Trimming overly long samples today on piano samples that have a very long silence at the end. I'd be glad to share with your channel, man. It's specific, but yes. Might have to explain that a bit more, Kenny. Anyone else got any other questions? Come on, chaps, Q&A. Maybe you don't need to know anything. How long is a piece of string? Akatengu, could you cover settings for if choking and not choking a sample? Yes. Right, so we're in the program editor, right? On the, if I understand your question correctly, Akatengu, if you've got a load of samples and you just want all of them to choke each other and you don't mind that it's completely monophonic, then you just switch the entire program from polyphonic to mono. Let's zoom in so you can see that. I'm just going to have to move my camera so we can just see the screen. So yeah, to make the entire program choke, you know, the samples within that program choke each other, you just set it to mono and you can only play one sample at a time. And they'll cut each other off. Or you could just leave it in monophonic mode. This is more flexible. You would go to LFO modulation and then you could just choose all your pads and then set the mute group for everything to the same mute group, and that would just behave in exactly the same way as setting it to monophonic, and then they would choke each other again. But doing it this way, you could then select or just go back to the current pad that you want to edit, and you could take it out of that mute group so that particular sound doesn't get muted or mute other pads. That's simple as that, Akatengu. That's how you choke or not choke a sample, if that's what you're asking. Anyone else? 19 people watching. Got to be some more questions, chaps. Kenny S, I kept messing around my MPC live buttons, plus minus buttons. Seems if you tap a menu option in effects, it opens the list. You mean the plus and minus buttons just underneath the screen? I just need to have a look at the MPC Live on Google Images. Yeah, they're next to the copy and play start, right? They're literally, if that's what you're asking, they're literally, as far as I remember, just to switch tracks. So on the MPC X, you've got it on the screen, okay? To track up and track down. This plus and minus button on the MPC X doesn't do that. You do it on the screen, but on the MPC Live, I think that's actually the only physical control that the MPC Live has got that the MPC X hasn't. It's such a confusing button. Yes, it switches whatever you select. I didn't realise that. That's interesting. Well, it's quite handy, but yeah. I haven't got my MPC Live anymore, so I can't test it out. But on here, the track minus and plus literally just changes the track as far as I'm aware, because it disappears obviously when you're in program edit, and if you try to plus and minus those effects up and down, you wouldn't be able to do it. Maybe, yeah, you can. So the plus and minus buttons on the MPC X do the same thing. They go up and down the menus. The one that's under here, under the knob. Sorry, I'm going to have to scroll out again, zoom out. So underneath the MPC X data wheel, you've got plus and minus, and that will go up and down your lists depending on what screen you're in. Let's go into sample edit. We've selected the sample box. Yeah, it does the same thing here. Cal Unger, samples don't seem to be the same audio volume even on full velocity. Why is that? Oh, that is that Cal or Kai? I can't see, mate. Is that an I? Yeah, Kai. Sorry, Kai. Even on full velocity, well, it depends. Sorry to ask a stupid question, but are your samples different bass levels? Like, are their original volumes lower than some other samples? I mean, it could be anything. It could be the frequency content. Even if they look louder than other samples, they might actually sound quieter, and vice versa. All your pad mixer volumes, I assume, are at their default value of 0. It won't be a problem with the actual full level control on the MPC X or MPC Live. It could be anything. It could just be the content. No, you mean the actual peak? Again, I'm not too sure what you mean, but the actual peak, when you say the actual peak, do you mean the original volume of the samples? Watch the meter, it's not always the same. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know what you mean, because it's, they're just jumping up and down because they're not, it wouldn't be dynamic. It would just sound flat if they were all exactly the same, if the VU meter was showing that they were exactly the same volumes. RTJ88, watch the last 20 minutes or so, thanks for the live. Really useful, more please. You're welcome. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I'll be doing more of these. Daniel Polly. There's a really cool filter on the 5000 that's default when entering the program edit. What's the equivalent on the... What is that? Because I had a 5000 and it did have good filters, but as far as I can remember, they're the same. Did you know you can bulk load key group samples from the MPC software on the computer? I think so. I don't use key groups all the time. I don't use the software all the time. I mostly use it in standalone. But yeah, that's good to know. Thanks, Kenny. Haven't used it for a while, but it's the first one that pops up. The filter on the MPC 5000, I can't remember. I thought it was low 2. The same as, well, this used to be low 2, I think. I always remember low 2 being
it was like the one in the middle. I might be wrong. It's not even a design feature either, it's a bug. Ah. Yo, bitch digger. Hi, Chevy bitch. Like if you're putting in samples for separate piano samples in key groups. Yeah, cool, that's good to know. I probably did know that, but I just haven't used that facility for ages. But yeah, if it's a bug, there's been a few things that have been removed that were not bugs, but maybe functionality that Akai Pro didn't want to continue, in these machines, which I kind of miss. I'm struggling to think of what they were now, but there was a few things in the latest update that have gone, or at least since 2.2 anyway. What are you saying, bitch traveller? Have I answered all the questions up to now? Daniel Polly about the 5000. Yeah, I don't know, mate, about that filter. The best filters for me in the 5000 before I had the live and then the X were the vocal filters. I thought they were really good. You could do some quite nice things with those. Anyone else got any questions? What time we got? We've got another 16, 17 minutes, chaps and chapesses. Hopefully there's some chapesses out there. I looked on my demographics for this channel. 98, maybe even 99.2% men, 0.8% women. It's pretty bad, isn't it, really? Maybe I should do some, I don't know. I don't want to say anything that's going to get me in trouble, but I could do some more, I don't know. How do you make this content more gender non-specific, if that's the right phrase? Kenny S, can you help me with the Q-Link learn mode? I'm curious. Can you unlock a mobile with Bluetooth? Yes. 1 second, Kenny. This chat is really annoying. It's only showing, I don't know how to drag it down. Oh, there you go. I have no idea how to make this pop out chat. There you go. Right, pops. I've popped my chat out. Oh, I've popped my chat out. Yes, I can help you with the Q-Link learn mode, Kenny. What do you want to know? Is that Elijah? Sorry, Elijah 009. How do I get a sample to play through in sample edit mode? Literally just press the first pad, if that's what you mean. It will just, so all the pads will behave in a different way when you're in sample edit mode. This top one's useful, that will loop. Even if it's not set to loop, it will just loop it for you to audition the loop. This next pad will play from just prior to the start of that loop, and then it will loop. No, it won't. It'll actually just play up to that point. I've forgotten. That one will play after it. That one will oh, that's stop and start. So it's like a latch. This one you have to hold. So yeah, look, if you look in the manual, guys, these, if you don't know, these pads all do different things. In the 5000, I think you could reverse, one of them actually reverse the sample just so you could hear it in reverse mode. But yeah, if you just want the sample to play through in a one-shot mode, it's the first pad. Without cutting each other off. I'll have to come back to that one, Elijah, if you want to explain that a little bit more. I'm not too sure. Chevy Traveller's been blinded? That's not good. I mean, that's really bad if that's true. I'm sorry, mate. Let me know if you need a hand washing up or something. how do I get samples play through something? I answered, well, that's pending for you, Elijah. Akai Tengu, the software and standalone crashes on me when adding or removing bars in a sequence. This is especially crippling after arranging so. Yeah, I've had, I don't know about you guys, but in the very latest version, 2.2.1.2, I can't remember what it is, but I've got the very latest version on here, and I've had quite a lot of crashes in the software. I've not reported the bugs because I've reported about 2 of them out of about 7. But it's one of those things that unless you're a beta tester and you've got all the time in the world to kind of test every possible scenario as to why that's happening, it's going to be pretty difficult to determine why, and to obviously help Akai to resolve it. But yeah, I have, to answer your question, Akatengu, I have had numerous crashes, not from doing what you're doing, just different things. So it is pretty random, but it is good to press that smiley face towards the bottom right hand corner of your MPC software and submit bugs through the proper channel, because they do read all of them and they do fix these things. But you do have to give them as much information as you can, because obviously, there's so many variables as to why these things mess up. You're going to do a down tempo live stream? Yeah, I will do a hip hop tune or a down tempo or something a bit, a bit less jungleistic. I promise you, I will be doing numerous different ones. This one's gone well. I'm happy with it. Obviously, quite a lot of you guys are happy and you thank me, and that's great. I really appreciate the feedback. But yeah, there was a bit in the middle where I really just got distracted. It's quite hard reading all your comments, which I want. I don't want you to stop chiming in. But trying to make a track, film it, know that you're under the scrutiny of the camera. It's I'll get used to it and I'll get better at it. I promise. Chevy, so yeah, the blinding thing, mate. You're going to have to see ophthalmologist, is it? Is that the correct word? Or, just hospital, basically. Go to hospital. If you've suddenly been blinded, that's kind of bad, man. I can't really help you out with that. I still don't know what you mean, Elijah. Chevy Traveller, I want to see class compliant audio and MIDI interface support. But you said you're blinded, so how can you see anything if you're blinded? I want to see class compliant audio and MIDI interface support. I can't help with that, but yeah. We've got MIDI, class compliant MIDI controllers, haven't we? MIDI and audio interface support. What? So you can plug in and not use the MPC interface? Is that what you mean? Akatengu, what about tips for exporting out to Ableton when you have a track built on the MPC? Just in brief, I mean, it's completely down to what you're doing, Akatengu. I mean, it's as simple as just being organised and naming your tracks. So when you export the actual tracks or sequences, you just know what you're dealing with. Just solo things if you need to, or just export individual tracks. If you want to isolate things, you can export individual programs or individual tracks, or you can just mute things or solo stuff. Blinded with the beats. Damn. So Kenny is blinded as well. So I've blinded 2 people tonight. That's really bad. Does that mean the channel's going to get taken off and you guys are going to come and sue me for, I don't know, GBH or something? I don't know. That's bad, man. I'm sorry, chaps. What's that class, what, and MIDI who? Sneaky Disco is asking Chevy Traveller, what do they mean about class compliant? Well, I can explain. Class compliant is generally, if you've got a USB device, you don't need dedicated drivers for it. It's plug and play, basically. So if you plug a class compliant USB MIDI controller into your MPC X, then it should just work straight off the bat. Next broadcast will be, I will do a Braille version for those that I've blinded tonight. What's a DC audio? What's a DC audio? Do you mean in signal processing? What's DC offset? In Q-Link, it's where I'm attempting to edit the amp decay in the different modes, the grid mode. So holding Q-Link and select program, click learn, twiddle the amp decay, and when I edit it, it shows it's moving. It just doesn't do anything. Yeah, I mean, you have to be in a specific Q-Link mode to edit the amp decay. So you've got to be in either program mode or project mode, or have set up pad scene or pad parameter to affect those specific parameters, if that's what you mean, Kenny. But you do generally have to be in program or project mode for the Q-Links, or in screen control mode, but then you'd have to be actually on that specific page in program edit. But if you learn the function and you're moving the knob and it's moving the parameter and it's fine, it should work. If it's showing it's moving, it could also be if you've got it in one shot or note on mode, because one shot mode, that's probably what it is. One shot mode will just play the sample from start to finish regardless. If you've got it in note on mode, then it will only play for as long as you hold the pad, or for as long as the note is entered on the sequencer, or depending on the actual release time or the sustain of the envelope. Elijah 009, sorry, I have 16 chops in sample edit, but I want the samples to not cut each other off. Let's say I hit pad A, how do I get it to play the whole sample, mean the whole? So if you mean that you've created a chop program in sample edit, chop programs will be created as monophonic programs. That's just the default, because Akai Pro assume that you don't want those you want them to do exactly what it says on the tin, chop each other, chop between those pads. If you don't want them to cut off, then you do what I showed you earlier, is you get that chop program and you just select the polyphony to be polyphonic. I hope that is what you mean, and I've answered that. Similar to Serato sample. I've not used that, Elijah, so I'm not too sure, mate. There you go. Chevy's your man for DC couples. A DC coupled audio interface allows CVs to be sent through an audio interface. Interesting. So you could have loads of addressable CV out from modular control, as opposed to standard CV out. Do you want to say hello to, like, my lovely lady's just walked in. There's only 19 bit. She just said hello. Hello. Thanks, no use for me. I don't use CV. Well, I may we've been with Euro snack. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Elijah 009. Yeah, that's how you. Yeah, chop programs are created as monophonic programs. You just switch it to poly, and there you go. Hello, Mrs. Digger. Oh, I was like, why are you calling me that? And then I forgot that, you know, she'd said hello. That's Mrs. Digger, yeah. Mrs. S. Digger. Tube Dig S in the house. That's Simon. Sorry, I've just revealed your first name. Not your first name. Your first name. His first name. Elijah009, is 1800 a good deal on the MPCX? Dollars? Yeah, very much so. See ya. She said bye, everyone. $1,800? Yeah, if that's brand new, or even if it's a demo and it's in perfect nick, or perfect condition. $1,800, yeah, that's very good, I would say, because they're still like about 1,800 UK pounds. Is that right? Am I getting my dollars and pounds mixed up? Is $1,800 a good deal on the MPCX? No. No. £1,800 is what it is over here. $1,800. What's that in pounds? Sorry, I'm getting my maths really wrong. These things really trip me up. I'll blame it on being left-handed. Yeah, so yeah, that's good. So that's about 1,300 British pounds. So if you're talking about dollars, yeah, that's good. That's 1,300 pounds in Britain, or in England, or yeah, Great Britain. It's 1,800 pounds. So yeah, that's decent. Luster Terry, I'd like to say thank you. Yeah, I've seen you pop up on the Facebook. Luster, thanks for your support, mate. Appreciate it. See ya, Chevy. Bye. See you, bye. Yeah, Tube. It's what I think too. Maybe I'm doing Q-Link edit wrong. Can you show us for it on the decay? It's a note. Yeah, okay. So let's put my screen back on. So if I'm in program edit, it doesn't matter what sample I've got. So this sample is that Quincy Jones sample that I used in the earlier part of this live stream. This is set to note on. And if you look at the default envelope for note on, it doesn't give you the attack decay. This envelope is a different envelope basically from if you've got it in one shot mode. Look, go back to the envelopes. You've got two different types to choose from. You've got attack and decay, and that's all you can adjust. But you can adjust it from the start or the end. Attack, hold, decay, sustain, it's a lot more advanced, and you've got these two extra parameters, right? But if you go back and if you change the sample play to note on, the default, it's actually changed now. I've actually moved it. But it's pretty much the same as the advanced envelope in one-shot mode. But it's actually referred to as release in this instance, because it's a note on. So this will, let's go back to one shot. This will just play for as long as possible with this current envelope. Okay. So that's a long sample, so it's hard to tell. But if I put it in note on mode, then it will just fade out depending on the envelope that I'm using, and get really short or really long. It won't infinitely sustain if you've got the release up full and the sustain up full and the decay up. I've actually submitted this as a feature request. The Pioneer DJS 1000 that I had for a short time, which you might have seen my videos on, the one thing that I liked, I preferred that over the MPCX, is the fact that you can just press a pad and it will loop infinitely for as long as you allow it to, which is great for doing drones and ambient and live stuff. If I just wanted to trigger a drone, I could just adjust the volume and bring in another one, and I'd know that they were constantly playing and I could just morph in between them. But with this, you have to have it added to the sequencer and playing for as long as the sequence, or it will just fade out after an amount of time depending on this release, which is a shame. But yeah, so cool. Yes, note on, right. All right, cool, Kenny, I'm glad. Oh, Chevy's still here. We're saying goodbye to Mrs. D. Oh, well, thank you. I'll tell her. I will tell her when I see her. Well, time's almost up, guys, but I'm kind of enjoying myself. I might have another cheeky drink of water. Kenny says releases at the sustain level and decays from there, but I hear you. A note on Q-Link edit to change the decay. Nothing happens. Right. Maybe it's a bug. I've not tried it, but if I go to program mode for my Q-Links, press and hold it, go to Q-Link edit. Now it's not assigned, so I've got to go to pad. Let's choose this one. So pad AO1 there. I'm going to choose program, parameter, tuning. Let's go up to amp, envelope, sustain. Let's go back to the program and just check. So this one is note on. Yeah, see, it's changing it. If I now go back to program, Q-Link edit for program mode, let's change this one again to pad, that same pad. Let's now get the release, amp, envelope, release. Yes, it works fine, man. So yeah, I'm not too sure. You can't change the decay for the entire program then. I think you can in pad scene or pad parameter. Assign 16 parameters to edit the current pad. I get mixed up with these two. Q-Link grid mirrors the pad layout. Assign 1 parameter for all Q-Links. Yeah, I think this is the one where you can change. So if we change, go to program, parameter, tuning, and amp, envelope, decay, or release. Yeah, so this now has given me, it doesn't actually do the entire program. You could if it was a key group program, but because this is a drum program, every pad has got its own individual parameters. I'm sure there is a way that you can do it for every, I mean, obviously you can do it when you edit the zones, you can adjust it that way, but if you wanted a Q-Link to adjust, one Q-Link to adjust all pads release times, I'll have to have a think about it. I can't work it out at the moment. I'm sure it can be done. It didn't work for some reason. Do you have time to show me, or do you have a video on it? Can you explain again, Elijah, what you want me to show you? It looks different on live. Chevy decay is the transition between the stack state. Yeah, but you can on the program edit to do all pads. Yeah, so you can edit. You can edit every single pad at the same time, all the parameters. If you select, select edit zones and either multiple or all. But when it comes to Q-Links, I forget. I'm sure you can, but the Q-Links will just be adjusting the individual pad that you're on. So look, if I press this pad, even though I'm in all mode and I'm using the Q-Links in pad parameter mode, I'm adjusting the release of that pad. But then if I click on this pad, do you see? Because I've used the Q-Link to do it for that specific pad. It will only do it in screen control mode, where you just get access to the release time, and now it will change it for everything. But obviously you've got to have the same amp envelope mode set and the same note on set for it to all behave the same anyway. But yeah, you're gonna have to play about with that, Kenny. I can't remember exactly how you do it, but I'm sure you can select. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't done it for ages. Yeah, the Q-Links on the X do make things They are, you know, I've always liked MIDI controllers that have, you know, a large amount of controls on them. Every MIDI, you know, I've never bought a MIDI controller that didn't have at least 16 knobs or faders on it. So you can do some nice sculpting. It makes all the difference. I think I've said this before in other videos. You know, have that malleable sort of, I don't know, physical connection with it. You know, rather than you just punching numbers in. And having to switch the banks on the live did irritate me a bit, and it did slow me up a bit. So we've still got 20 people. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go until midnight, guys, which will be 3 hours. It's not too bad. I should have said this earlier, guys, but if you haven't already done so, you don't have to. I won't be annoyed if you don't. I will still love you, but you can contribute to my channel any amount you want, even if it's just like 50 cents, $1, $5. There's been some really generous people out there who've given me $5, $10, $20 here and there over the last few months, and it's made all the difference. So if you do enjoy what you're seeing here and you don't mind contributing to the channel, I'm really trying to throw everything into this. I know I've gone quiet lately, but yeah, if you do want to help us out, help an old tube digger out, then you could just send it via PayPal to tubedigger@gmail.com. But obviously no worries. I know that, you know, people are skin and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want to be asking for money from you guys all the time. Chevy Traveller's off the hook. He's been very, very generous to me. Elijah009. So I have 16 chops in sample edit. Excuse me. But I want the samples to not cut each other off. I hit pad A. How do I get it to play the whole sample? Yeah, so you have 16 chops in sample edit. So in sample edit mode, let me just try it and do what you're saying. Maybe I got confused because I thought you meant when you actually made a chop program. But let's say we're in sample edit now. I'm going to chop mode. Let's chop it into regions. This is actually not the best sample to do it in because it's massive. Let's choose. I'm just going to go out of this and load in the other version, the one that we built in this video. I say I did all the work. I've used that joke before. It's getting boring now. Cinderella Digger. Oh, okay, yeah, midnight and all that. If you want to play the whole sample, then why chop it into 16 slices? Maybe it's just to hear the rest of that sample. Let's go to sample edit. Right, so look, this is an easy thing to chop. Let's go to regions. We've got 16 regions. So yeah, I mean, like Chevy Traveller says, you know, if you've chopped it, you know, there's no way, you know, I understand why you might want to just hear it all play through, but the idea is to just go back to the original. And is that... So one of these pads, when it's pad 3, that will play it everything after that. Because you've now chopped it, you know, look, you can adjust the end time, but you're obviously adjusting the trim, aren't you? So if that's what you mean. But pad 3 will play the rest of the sample. In chop mode it won't, because it's playing slice 3, if you see what I mean. But when you go back to trim mode, you know, now because I've focused on that third, you know, like, it depends what slice you're on as well. So for example, if I go to slice 11 and then back to chop, or to trim from chop, we now are hearing this slice, and then pad 3 will play everything after that, or before that.
So it's pad 3 and pad 4 will play everything up to that point and everything after. The pads, like I said in the manual, will behave in different ways depending on what you're doing and also what you've done. So now that we've put chops in chop mode it will only play, you know, the chops. But if you want to export that to a chop program, you can then set that chop program up in program edit mode to play a particular slice. This also is another thing, link slices. If you unlink the slices, they're now independent. So that might be what you're asking, but it only works once you've exported that. So if we now export this to a program with link slices deselected, we can now freely move around the start and end points of any of these chops, and it won't affect any of the other chops. But if you're in link slices mode, if you move the start point of one, it'll affect the end point of the next slice and vice versa. Hopefully that's answered your question, Elijah. But yeah, in a sample edit mode, it will only play each individual slice in chop mode. And again, to reiterate, if you go back to trim mode, because you've chopped that sample, you know, the idea is that in chop mode, you get your chops how you want them, you export that program will remember these chops, but then it means you can go back to this sample and chop it again with different chops and then create a new program. So yeah, I mean, you've answered Chevy Traveller's question. To hear the rest, then I've answered your question. In sample editor, that's the only way you can do it, is go back to trim mode and press pad 3 and 4 and it will play. So that's played all the way through now. So pad 3 and 4 will play everything before, and pad 4 will play everything after that. That's how you do it. But I'm kind of thinking that you're wanting to do something that it can't do, which I've wanted to do myself, is like, yeah, I mean, once you've chopped it, you're kind of restricted to, I think, I might be wrong actually. If you go to the gear symbol up here, you can set the cue playback or the slice preview. So we could try that. Let's set slice preview to before. Yeah, I mean, it's something I'll have to look at to be able to do that, but I'm not too sure if you can. Once you've chopped it, it's chopped. It used to do it in chop mode on 1.9. So what, you'd press one pad, but it would continue playing. Yeah, interesting. There you go. It's play cue. So if you press play cue, there you go. That plays the whole sample. I'm Tube Digger, and I'm out. No, I'm not out. I'm still here. I don't think, if we change, so the cue preview, I've set that to off, slice preview. Yeah, I mean, all of those options are set to off, but if I press play cue, it's playing the whole sample through in chop mode. That's how you do it. What we got? We got 20 people, and I'm answering this one question about chop mode. Surely we got more questions. Have I answered all the previous questions, everyone? Have I done a good service? Are you going to give me $1 on PayPal? Come on, if everyone on here, apart from Chevy Traveller and anyone else that's contributed, if you all gave me $1, I'd have $19, because it's just gone down. I've just lost another person. They've gone, oh, he's asking for money again. I'm going to bed. Do you use 96 or 960 resolution, and what is it? It's a graphic resolution for the grid, I believe. It doesn't affect the actual sequencer itself and the resolution of the sequencer. Yeah, come on, love me long time. Give me $1.
Give me $1. Love me long time. Give me $20. Each person give me $20. $20. I'm not being racist doing this accent. I'm affecting an accent that the film reference is related to. I promise you. No racist. People are so sensitive these days. And Sneaky Disco, you wrote that as well, so it's your fault. I thought it was sound quality. No. 96 ppqn, or it's here. Let's go and have a look. Sequencer. So yeah, up here it's the display resolution. So it can be 96 pixels per quarter note, I think that is. I think that's what it stands for. Or it's 960 pixels per quarter note. I think, or is it pulses? I think it's pulses. But I'm not too sure because this is related to resolution. So I might, you know, I think Chevy Traveller will probably be able to answer that question because he's a little bit more clever than me in when it comes to very deep technical things. Elijah, yeah. Yeah. Is that yeah? That's how you do it? Hopefully I've answered your question, mate. Pulses, yeah, it's pulses, yeah. So I was thinking it was pixels first of all, and then I remembered back in the day it's pulses, but that's what it's showing you, you know, it's highest resolution, those pulses per quarter note. But it doesn't actually affect the actual resolution of the sequencer itself. Let's have a look. So we've got 96 ppqn. Let's have a look at the grid view. It's because I've messed up my chops. 960. Yeah, I'm not too sure how to test that, guys. Will the MPC Live read MPC Ren software files? I've no idea. I've never had the MPC Ren. I should know this, but I can't answer that, Dean. I would imagine so. I would imagine so. If you mean project files that were made on the MPC Ren, then it should do, yeah. I don't see why not. Can it do it on the pad, though? I don't think so, Elijah. I don't think so. As you could see when I press play Q, unless it is one of those settings, like I showed you in the sample editor, up here, you've got slice preview. So let's set it to before. I mean, play Q, I think it's just a screen function as far as I'm aware, but you might be able to change that behavior. Let's change Q play mode. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you're going to have to play around with, man. 48 or 48 kilohertz, 44 or 48 kilohertz. Someone asked me recently for some project files for a project that they're doing, which I'm helping them out with, and they preferred, which I was surprised at, 44 kilohertz. And I'm not too sure, but I'm thinking maybe it's something to do with CD quality and matching up to that, and a standard, you know, not everyone uses 48, so maybe it's something to do with that. I think I use mine in my MPCXs in 48. I can check. I've forgotten now. I think recently I might have changed it for this person to give them some 44 kilohertz. Where am I? I'm looking hardware there. Sorry. No, it's not in hardware, is it? That is changed. I've not looked at any of this stuff for ages. So I think it seems like they've locked that off. I'm sure that there was an option in the preferences to change the I can only see the sampling bit depth here. But I'm sure you could switch between 48 and 44 before. Yeah, that's disappeared unless I'm completely missing. But there was definitely in the general tab near the sampling bit depth, you could change, I'm sure you could change between 44 and 48. Excuse me. It's a very marginal difference between 44.1 and 48k. It's the bit depth that really will notice. I don't know, if you've got a 96 kilohertz file and you pitch shift it, there's considerably less artifacts. But between 44.1 and 48k, I mean, you're barely going to notice the difference. But yeah, as Chevy Traveller says, yeah, you're not really gonna hear the difference. It's slightly higher resolution, but I mean, again, bit depth. You're sort of getting into audiophile territory with stuff like this. I've just pulled my mic off. In my opinion, it's the sort of thing that if you're sitting there listening to two different hi-fi systems and being really beard strokey about what is, but you know, having higher bit depths does help. There you go. I told you he's your man. Chevy Traveller blood, you're cramping my style, bruv. It's got all the answers, this one. It's saving my arse at the same time. Academic. Yeah. But yeah, as Chevy Traveller says, I generally use 48 when I'm doing sort of sound design for some sort of trailers or something that's going to go online for sort of moving picture. Yeah, and 44. I mean, I usually use 48 for music as well, but it was only recently someone asked me for 44 and it made me think, you know, I could just do 44. Well, we've got 5 minutes left, chaps. If you've got any more questions, please give me some feedback if this has been helpful. I know you have done already. If there's anyone else still watching, that wants to chime in. Quick time stretching live demo. How do you mean, Sneaky Disco? Elaborate, please. Real-time stretching. Real-time time stretching. I can't remember. I think in software controller mode you can do real-time time stretching, if that's what you mean. But on the pads, I thought you knew this, but it's just warping, right? Is that what you mean? The actual warping on the pad? Yeah, so I mean, it's not going to sound anything comparable to a VP9000. That's a dedicated mangling, warping, time stretching machine. But on here, you've obviously got to think that this resource is being spread over every single pad in every single program. So if you had 8 programs that were all using warp at the kind of quality that a VP9000, I mean, yeah. But yeah, just to show you, let's just start a new project. Don't save. I'm just going to load in quickly a break from my SD card. Samples, breaks. That'll do. I'm not going to use the aim break just because it's sacred and holy. Let's go to 176 BPM. Oh, 17.6. That's a bit slow, isn't it? 176. I think this break was... So that's perfectly in time at 176, right? So it's not warped. If I warp it, you'll hear the difference in the sound quality. Now it's not too bad because you won't notice it on something because this break is at 176. But if we start adjusting the pitch of it, you'll hear the artifacts. But I do think they have improved this. I've started to use it more just for very simple correction things that if it doesn't sound that bad and it's not noticeable, but previously you could really hear, I think they've actually corrected. I could be wrong. It might just be the fact that I've got, this is perfectly in sync with 176, but I did notice before that it did some weird things to the transients. But yeah, it's sounding pretty good at its bass pitch, but you've only got to move it a few away into the upper semitones and it'll, you know, it doesn't sound brilliant. It's better to do what I showed you at the start of this video by chopping all your breaks into really short sections. Then you don't have to time stretch it. It will play back at a really wide range of tempos if you've isolated all the individual hits and it's all nice and chopped and clean, and you do it manually like I showed you in the very first part of this, you know, well, in the first hour that I was working on that break in this stream. So yeah, the VP was a very special bit of kit, quite unique, I agree. I would love, there was one on eBay recently for about 260 quid, I think. Thanks for doing this. No worries, Mauro Lupo just jumped in. I've been going for 3 hours, mate, so I'm going to finish now, pretty much. Probably why it didn't sell well. Nobody understood it. Yeah, I kind of like those artifacts. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather... You know, I think I've done a video, well, I did do a video on this, on how to emulate the old jungle time stretch. You're only really going to get that if you just buy yourself a second-hand S2000 or S1000 or something like that. And then just sample it. But you can kind of fake it on the MPC-X and MPC Live, but the warping on here, yeah, it can be used for effects, but you kind of have to, you know, really have a play. But it's all dependent on the content. Right, chaps, I'm going to sign out. I'll give you one more minute to chime in and then I'm going to skip off and I will see you on the next one. I don't know if it's going to be another live one for a little while, but I will be doing some mixes as said. Skype lessons, if you want further one-to-one personal tuition, hit me up on Facebook. I do charge for that, but it's well worth the money. Any donations, more than welcome. Even if you send me a packet of light bulbs through the internet, that would be a miracle, which it actually would be. Hey Tube, I figured it out for the Q-Link. Learn for selecting all pads. It's a bug. It selects the very last pad, H16. That's why it hadn't adjusted the decay for my... Okay, cool. Does for individual pads. Sticky Disco, thank you. Thank you for watching. What's the fee for one-on-one lessons? So I charge 45 UK pounds for an hour, but it usually goes over an hour, at least to an hour and a half. I will always compensate for any technical things, like if we can't hear each other on Skype, even if it's your Skype that's playing up, I'll give you an hour for that money. I'll give you at least an hour regardless. But yeah, £45 or $64 US dollars, or if you're in Europe, it's about 52 euros. If you want a block book, I'll give you, if you block book more than five or more, I will give you a lesson free. If you book more than 10, which a couple of people have, I will give you 2 lessons for free. So it sounds like a lot of money, but it's well worth it, and it's no more than your average sort of music teacher really would, you know, charge, or someone, a freelance consultant. So, you know, I don't get loads of these. I've had a decent amount, but you know, I've got to make money, chaps, obviously. So that's how much they are. I'm not going to adjust that price. Only if you book more than 5 or 10, I can give you free lessons as a little extra bonus. Damn, bit late this time, but yeah, nice one, Mauro. No worries, mate. Yeah, that's a bargain. I could charge more, yeah, but I'm trying to get the numbers in. But that's what this is for, guys. It's a cheeky little way to, you know, sneak in a little bit of advertising for that. But you won't be disappointed, and it will help you to learn your machine and get you on the way. So, you know, cover lots in an hour. So it's not like you're going to have to be booking loads and breaking the bank anyway. What if you're blind? Yeah. If you're blind, let me think. If you so I am not laughing at, obviously that is a horrendous disability for some people and extremely difficult. If you are actually blind, there's no reason, if you are at Stevie Wonder skill level and you can operate your MPC live and you are a blind person, I'm sure I could help. I would love to help some disabled people use musical equipment. If I could, you know, obviously get some people interested in that, I'd definitely give a discount for that as well. Mr. Digger is very touchy-feely. Oh, just got an Akai MPC live. Thanks for videos. They've been very... No worries, Nicholas Silent. I have no hands. I'm typing with my nose. Right, Kenny, you've got to be careful here, mate, because some people do have real difficulties. I really hope that you actually don't have those difficulties, and then I would have really offended you. But yeah, this has gone way, way off. But yes, quite happy to teach any people with any learning difficulties or physical disabilities or anything. Anyone and everyone, you're all welcome. Just get in touch with me on Facebook. Thanks, guys. I'm going to skip off now because I'm absolutely knackered. Thank you very much for watching. Please stay tuned. Please like, share, subscribe, all that business. I will see you on the next one. This is Tube Digger. And I'm out.